I am New York State Senator Mario Matera. I represent the 2nd Senate District, which is in Suffolk County, which includes the town of Huntington and Smithtown on Long Island. I am the ranking Republican on Energy Committee. I am proud to be here today to protect our ratepayers and our small businesses from the senseless and rushed energy policies that are increasing costs and will have a disastrous impact on all New Yorkers. I would like to thank Leader Rob Ortt, not for only appointing me as the ranking Republican on this important committee, but for being so vocal on this critical issue. I thank all of my fellow Republicans on the Energy Committee, Tom O'Mara, Mark Walczak, and all of my colleagues for being here today. I most importantly want to thank the speakers who have traveled here to explain how important it is to keep the New York Heat Act out of the final budget. In effect, it bans clean natural gas for all of our residents and businesses and takes away New Yorkers' fuel choice. Just like the entire CLCPA, this act will make energy much more expensive for all New Yorkers and make fuel choice a relic of the past. Make no mistake, this is a move by Democrats to force their fuel choices on our residents and our businesses. It will, like an ill-conceived CLCPA, cost our families and businesses too much. How much? The Democrats won't say. Too much. When you talk to those who think this is a good idea, what they say on that side, across the aisle, it is the cost of doing business. Is that amazing? Is the cost of doing business to go and hurt all of our residents' pocketbooks? This act, if either put on the budget approval after, will force many who live here and own businesses in New York to leave, as so many have decided to do already. Over 2 million have left New York State since 2020. Amazing, over 2 million residents of New York State to move to Florida, Texas, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina. My wife tells me we're going to be moving to Tennessee. I don't want to move to Tennessee. It costs way too much money. And what's happening right now with New York Heat Act and things that the Democrats on the other side put forward to mandate is just hurting all of us. And it will cost the hardworking men and women who work in this field, who have trained for years, their jobs. It will harm our contractors and increase the cost of housing. And sadly, there is nothing in this bill to help these skilled workers. I had a debate with Senator Krueger the other day on the floor, and the one question I asked, I go, what about education? What about educating? What about educating all the workers that are going to be losing their jobs that were there to get licensed? Our contractors that have to have all these licensing to make sure that you could install natural gas. And you know what you're going to do? You're just taking their careers away from them, and they're being forced into having new careers. Workers like those from the IBEW Local Union 1049 utility workers, who many of us stood with this weekend as the fight for a fair contract with NatGrid. These workers have been there in times of emergency and times of danger. The Democrats are taking their livelihoods away. These workers keep the natural gas flowing and the lights on. And the Democrats don't care. I'm telling you, they do not care. Remember, it is the price of doing business to do away with natural gas. Terrible. This is called dysfunctional government at its worst. Someone said, please make sure I mention that. That I said it, totally dysfunctional at its worst. The same Democrats who are deeply concerned about federal workers do not care about our correction officers or skilled plumbers and pipe fitters, like my United Association of Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, that will be losing their jobs. It is time to pause this insanity. To protect our ratepayers from trillions of dollars the CLCPA will cost all New Yorkers. Protect our workers from the lost jobs and protect the future of our state. To be clear, it is time to say no to the New York Heat Act. It is in the state one house, but not in the Assembly's proposal. We urge the Assembly to continue to listen to common sense and keep the New York Heat Act out of the final budget. Instead, we should expand the flow of the Iroquois pipeline and to restart the work on the Constitution pipeline from Pennsylvania to New York State up to New England, and not have frozen natural gas on our roadways right now because of the capacity shortage. Everybody needs to know that. We care about the environment, the other side, but they don't care about all those diesel trucks that right now are polluting our area, driving in and putting in frozen natural gas and the energy that is needed to liquefy that natural gas. No one talks about that. This pipeline is crucial for all the residents and energy needs in New York State. We should look into every possible source of energy before we overburden our infrastructure and lose more residents. I have introduced bills to study our energy sources and need to move on to those. And we should know how much the CLCPA would truly cost New Yorkers. I have introduced a Climate Action Cost Council bill, S5611, that would mandate quarterly meetings to examine the cost of the CLCPA. They have not had a meeting in over 3 years. We need to know how much this is going to cost New Yorkers. And when we do have our meetings, very interesting meetings, and I recommend everybody to go to our energy meetings because they're probably the most interesting ones, no disrespect to other committees. Saying it's the cost of doing business is not the answer. We should have a realistic plan, not a natural gas ban. Now I want to turn it over to my great colleague that has been very, very vocal, not just with Senator Tom O'Mara, but Senator Walczak has been so vocal at all of our meetings and has been studying about the future of energy needs, and especially to keep our natural gas here in New York State. So to my great colleague, please, Senator Walczak, please come up here and tell us how you feel.
Thank you, Mr. Ranker. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's ironic that they call it the New York Heat Act, isn't it? As my esteemed, distinguished, and well-respected colleague and ranker on the Energy Committee, Mario Matera, says, we need a plan, not a ban. The New York Heat Act is the opposite of what you would expect a good plan to look like, even if you were on the side of what they're trying to accomplish here. If there's no fuel, there's no heat. And this act requires the PSC to literally cut the gas off for New Yorkers. It also has a 6% cap on energy costs. That sounds great. You know why? New Yorkers have been saying, our energy costs are skyrocketing. My energy bill has gone up. The Empire Center has said 10% of that is because what Democrats in Albany have already passed. That's why your energy is going up. So what is the reaction from those Democrats? They say, well, we blame the PSC and we blame the utilities, and then we ban more gas and take more fuel out of the system, skyrocketing your energy costs, but pointing the finger at everybody else so that we can get our agenda done. Conservatively, the CLCPA is going to cost $340 billion. That's what the comptroller said. And this is why your bill is very important, because we've seen estimates that say this could cost $4 trillion for New Yorkers. But if we just take the conservative estimate that the comptroller has given us, you're talking about, over the next 25 years, $177,000 for every man, woman, and child in the state of New York. You're literally talking about a mortgage payment for every individual New Yorker just to pay for their transition here. At the same time, they have legislation that caps the cost for certain individuals that they see as politically expedient. So there's absolutely no way to pay for this plan, at least in the legislation of what they call the HEAT Act. Meanwhile, the Department of Environmental Conservation is banning refrigerants that go in the air source heat pumps, the ductless mini splits that they say are going to solve all of this crisis. And this legislation literally requires that reliable energy services be consistent and not be dismantled. Well, at the same time, DEC is banning some of that technology. Reliability and safety are incredibly important. That's what natural gas provides New York residents right now. We saw this in the Buffalo blizzard. What does it look like when the heat goes out for people? And I know the deaths were absolutely tragic. The story that doesn't get told as much is how many lives were saved by people having access to safe, reliable natural gas to continue to heat their home in the worst circumstances in Buffalo, New York. Lives saved. This bill creates a new precedent. They love to blame the Public Service Commission. I mentioned that earlier. 4 years and 8 months from right now, this law requires the Public Service Commission to start shutting the gas off for communities in New York State. 4 years and 8 months from now, in the dead of winter, the Public Service Commission will be required to shut gas off for New York State's residents against their will. And they will point the finger at the PSC once again. One last thing that I want to do, and I appreciate the fourth branch of government, our press, being here today, before I turn it over to our expert here, is I'm just going to read a list of names because this is the sponsor and the co-sponsors of this legislation. When you bump into them in the hall, I would like to ask you what do you heat your home with, and will you shut it off first? Their names are Kruger, May, Fahey, Adabo, Brisbort, Brook, Clear, Comrie, Cooney, Fernandez, Gianaris, Gonzalez, Ganardis, Harcum, Hinchy, Hoyleman, Siegel, Jackson, Kavanaugh, Liu, Martinez, Mayer, Myrie, Ramos, Rivera, Salazar, Sanders, Sepulveda, Serino, Stavisky, and Webb. When you bump into them in the hallway, ask them if they'll be the first to shut the gas off in their home. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Ortega.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. My name is Daniel Ortega. I am the Executive Director for New Yorkers for Affordable Energy, and I'm also the Director of Community Affairs for the Operating Engineers Local 825 Labor Management Fund. We cover most of the Hudson Valley. I want to begin by saying thank you to the Senate GOP for their strong support, especially to Leader Ort and the ranking member, my fellow union leader, Senator Matera. As you know, the New York HEAT Act is unfortunately back in the conversation for this year's New York State budget. While the bill has now been around for several years and it has been amended, it remains just as bad for the ratepayers, jobs, and consumers as it was when it was first introduced. Let's start with some facts. This bill will force consumers to move to electricity at their own expense. It is important to mention this because during the floor debate, Senator Kruger said New York State will pay for this cost. The problem is that there is no money anywhere in this budget to cover that cost, unless, of course, the senator has a secret line on the budget that none of us know about to cover that cost. And if that's the case, then she should be truthful and let us know that that's there. It's important to know that we have that type of money in the budget just for this. The HEAT Act will increase the bills for 75% of New Yorkers, and this is not just a claim, this is a fact. And how do we know this? Well, Senator Kruger admitted to that in a press release that when she announced with advocates the introduction of the HEAT Act a year ago. She said, and I quote, 25% of New Yorkers will save an average of $136 per month under the HEAT Act. Well, I'm not big into math, never was, but I can tell you that 75% of New Yorkers will pay more, and 25 will at the expense of the 25 who will pay less, and that is, quite frankly, a losing proposition. The bill will also get rid of the 100-foot rule that obligates a utility company to provide free hookups of gas service if the home or business is within 100 feet of a gas line. Again, Senator Kruger says this is a not big deal, because if you choose to have natural gas in your house, you should pay for the hookup yourself. Well, not everybody has that type of money. Not everybody has that expense just readily available to put in construction. In this environment, where affordability is a major concern for all New Yorkers, how could you look at a price like that and say, not a big deal? Further, getting rid of the 100-foot rule will drastically decrease the amount of union workers that do natural gas work throughout the state for each and every one of the utility companies that we have here. Senator Kruger has said that they will be retrained as electricians, but she provides zero funding in this budget or any proposal to pay for that training. Again, unless she has a secret line budget that we don't know about.
It's not there.
According to the New York Independent System Operator, New York is going to need much more energy in the incoming years as it is. The promised transition to renewable energy is way behind and is costing way more than anyone told us back in 2019. The only way to keep the grid stable and the lights and the heat on is to continue to use natural gas. Right now, and I just checked 5 minutes ago, 75% of the power in the state comes from natural gas. Renewables, and this, not counting hydroelectric, are producing about 12%. The last thing New York needs is a policy to get rid of the tap energy source. In short, the New York Heat Act is a disaster for workers, businesses, and consumers alike. The goal of this bill is clear, no matter how hard they try to hide it. Get rid of the ability for New Yorkers to access and use safe, reliable, and affordable natural gas in their homes and businesses. The HEAT Act shows us that far-left politicians in Albany who do not understand the economy or the way how the Utility Industry Act are trying to impose their ideology driven by their own views on everyday people without concerns for the cause. We strongly argue the Assembly and the Governor to reject this proposal put forward by the Senate majority, and instead continue to champion common sense, affordability, and a stronger economy. One more thing before I introduce my colleague, Tom. If you're betting on the HEAT Act to change or do anything positive to energy policy or energy bills in the state of New York, I highly recommend you call 1-800-GAMBLER. Thank you. Now we're going to have...
I should have got my one.
We're going to have Thomas Murphy from the Power Construction Group of Rochester say a few words. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Thomas Murphy, and I'm a Vice President at the Power Construction Group located outside of Rochester, New York. We have in our company 80 of our 300 employees who work in our gas infrastructure. We are a non-union company standing together with the union companies here because we both care about the people and their jobs. Every one of those jobs would be in danger if the HEAT Act were passed. I want to thank Senator Ort, Senator Matera, and the entire Senate Republican Conference for their support in fighting this harmful legislation. It is obvious to me, in reading the New York HEAT Act and listening to the recent floor debate, that the bill's sponsors have absolutely no idea of our energy sector, how our energy sector operates. We have much specialized training, how much specialized training is required, and how much economic pain this bill would cause. The average salary of a gas utility worker in New York State is $120,000, which is $69,000 more than the average in the whole state. Every year, all our gas employees must go through op calls to be recertified to make sure they can perform all the specialty work safely. This is an ongoing training, and if you don't pass, you will not be certified to perform this work. There's also a specialized union apprenticeship program for gas workers that is 5 years long, and they contain specific criteria relating to gas systems. These bills' sponsors believe that these people can magically be turned into electrical workers. This, my friends, is not true. Electrical workers have their own specialized training that takes years to acquire the knowledge to be able to build substations, improve infrastructure. Yet the HEAT Act does not allocate $0 towards any of the retraining of any of these men and women that work there, if this should become law. The job losses in the market will go far beyond the frontline workers. There will also be significant losses, jobs in the training, the management, the ancillary work connected with these gas lines. The loss of all these jobs would be a direct responsibility of passing this bill. The sponsors like to say that all the work that will be replaced by renewable energy. The fact is, well, even if you could overcome the specialized training that is needed, a typical 5-megawatt solar project would employ 20 to 30 people total for the project for 18 to 14 months. Meanwhile, 500 workers are needed to construct 100 miles of pipeline, and utility employees, workers, hundreds of full-time jobs, and just to maintain the system after it goes in. Renewable energy can never replace the pay, benefits, and the lengths of the project works that the men and women are doing for us on the gas. As an employer in upstate New York, I implore the governor and the assembly to please reject the New York HEAT Act and do not put it in the final budget. Thank you.
Good job. job.
Thank you.
Reintroduce now.
Yep. All right. Now I'd like to introduce Francis Palazinski.
You said that right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Northeastern Retail Lumber Association represents local, independently owned lumber and building material dealers throughout the state of New York. More than 350 retail locations that can be found in every county. They're your local businesses, like right here in the Capital Region, Saratoga Quality Hardware is a third-generation woman-owned business, or Cider Lumber in Senator Matera's district, or White's Lumber in Senator Walz's district. These businesses have been pillars of their local community for generations. They supply the essential building materials that builders, contractors, and homeowners need every day. This bill will do nothing to improve the affordability crisis in New York. It will only drive up the prices for those essential goods that everyone relies on, from a house load of lumber to a kitchen package, to a window, a door, a can of paint that a homeowner needs to maintain their most valuable asset, their home. This bill will drive up those costs even further, putting, for the next generation who wants to stay here in New York and build a career, a family, and own a home even further out of reach. We're calling on the governor not to include this in the final budget and create a more affordable New York. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce Senator Mario Matera.
Thank you so much. So, I just want to thank everybody, all the colleagues and everything like that, and just listening to everybody and how it's just going to affect all of us in New York State, all residents. And, to sit there, when you talk to people and you say, we're going to be, by 2030, you're not going to be able to, put a new boiler in. You're not going to be able to do a stove, water heater, none of that. You're not going to be able to do this. And people are just going to go to other states and purchase that and bring it back home. We're better than that here in New York State. Senator Kruger, we have discussions all the time. I said, boy, you're consistent and persistent because you really care about banning natural gas. That's what he said to her. And to hurt jobs, and just like what was said. So people have to be retrained to be electricians. Not that those are my brothers and sisters that I work with all the time. But it's not just that. We need to make sure that we keep the gas flowing for a lot of reasons, for our lives. So, I'm just happy that we're here today, to all the speakers and my colleague, Senator Walzek, to speaking today. Daniel Ortega, thank you so much for you being such a great union leader and caring about the operating engineers that will be losing their jobs also, too. Thomas Murphy, thank you. I appreciate that, from Power and Construction Group. Francis Palazinski from Northeast Retail Lumber Association. Thank you for your statement. And I just want to thank all of our businesses and residents and to all of our workers that keep the gas flowing. And again, we need a plan and not a ban.